The meeting today will be called to order. This is the Cochise County Jail District Board of Directors meeting, Thursday, May 25th, 2023 at 1 p.m. in the Board of Supervisors hearing room, 1415 Melody Lane, Building G, Bisbee, Arizona. Any item on this agenda is open for discussion and possible action. I'll call the roll. District 1.
Crosby is here.
District 2.
Supervisor English is
And
present.
District 3 Supervisor Judd is here. Members of the public may also attend this meeting via Microsoft Teams computer or mobile app or via phone by calling 602-609-7513 or 888-680-6714, conference ID 329-185-476#. If you have trouble accessing this meeting remotely, call 520-432-9200 for direction. The board may permit public comment during the discussion of any item on the agenda. To speak on an agenda item, complete and return the speaker request form to the clerk of the board prior to the start of the meeting. We have one action item in our meeting today. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the election results certified and submitted by the Cochise County Elections Department as the official canvass for the special election held on May 16, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I did not note, but you may have heard David Stevens, our county recorder, is with us on Teams. Okay, we're going to start with our speakers at this point, and then we'll conclude with discussion and things before we make the actual vote. All right, so the first person speaking is Jack Dona. And everyone who comes forward, you have 3 minutes, and please state your name and your address.
Madam Chair, my name is Jack Donna, retired Master Sergeant, and I reside in Sierra Vista, Arizona. So why are we here? We're here because there's a problem with the rule of law. We're a nation of laws, okay? We're not a nation run by bureaucrats. At least we're not supposed to be a nation run by bureaucrats. Now, Lisa Mara, on her way out, planted this poison pill, okay, for this jail complex. And it's my understanding, should have gone to the Board of Supervisors first. Because our elected officials are the ones that make laws, not bureaucrats. It's not supposed to be that way. And my message to all of you is this. If we don't have the rule of law in this country, okay, why should we respect the rule of law if the bureaucrats won't? At what point in society do we finally say the bureaucrats are running the show, the lawyers are running the show, there are no means of redress anymore? And it just infuriates me. It infuriates me. Board of Supervisors never should have retroactively approved this measure. It's a poison fruit of the tree. It's rotten to the core. Okay? Now, on a personal note, very upset because I worked hard and so did my wife. We're both retired. We planned well. Okay? Maybe not as good as this high-paid bureaucrats and lawyers. Okay? But we worked hard. We paid our taxes. We followed the rules. We followed the law. And now, because of the actions of this administration, my family's being absolutely crushed financially. We're having to support not one, not two, but 3 households. Literally, my wife is sending food, okay, via mail, gas money to our children, being crushed. And who in their right mind thought it was a good idea to raise taxes in the county at this time? It's outrageous. I had a long talk with Sheriff Daniels, an hour and a half on the phone, okay? There is a problem with the jail complex, but the Board of Supervisors should be the ones to resolve it. They need to come up with a plan. It's a $5 billion surplus up at the state. Where's Lupe Diaz? Where's David Gallon? Where are elected officials? Why aren't they lobbying for us? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next speaker is Dan LaChance.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Judd. Good to see you in that middle seat, and somebody else is not in there. That's a good thing for this county. Board members, regarding the election, we know precisely what happened. We did our research and we have all the facts and the details. We know who did and said what. There's going to be accountability. We tested the water with our pro se case in order to see if this county was interested at all in reconciling with the citizens that you guys walked on. It wasn't. Sadly, the county wasn't. They walked all over that pro se gentleman and didn't even give him a chance to let the evidence come out. Under the previous chair, county officials ran amok as if they could do whatever they wanted to do, whenever they wanted. And in doing so, they broke laws. Now, David Stevens, he's an honest man. David, are you listening? You're an honest man. You were put in a terrible situation by an unethical, unprofessional previous elections director named Lisa Mara. To make matters worse, when the county and the opportunity had the opportunity to get right with the law and the citizens, the chairperson and the administrator coerced fellow board members to force an all-male election, which was a complete mess, disenfranchising, suppressing, and impeding citizens' right to vote. Can you imagine that? Then playing yet another dirty trick on the citizens, they claim that Proposition 132 does not apply. Why doesn't Proposition 132 apply? Have the courage to get the 60%. Don't play games with us. That's just not the right thing to do. Get the 60%. We finally rid ourselves of a dishonest chairperson and elections director. Chairperson Judge, Supervisor Crosby, vote no on this canvas. Do the process right. Make that sheriff go to the legislator. Go to the legislator with them. Prove it. Prove that there's a problem. We haven't seen that there's a problem yet. There is no problem. There might be some things that need to get fixed, but we know that there was a bait and switch done on us, and we don't like that. Restore our confidence, please, Ms. Judd. Please, Mr. Crosby. Restore our confidence and our trust in this system that has been badly broken. Everything's going to be made public. It's all going to get made public. The lawyers are going to know what happened. It's getting put in place. I don't ever want to see an all-mail-in election again, ever in this county. Okay? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Juan Kwan.
Thank you and congratulations, Mrs. Judd. We petition all three board members today because we have been witness to a lawless setup of this election that is not conforming to law, as the previous two speakers, Sergeant Donia and Mr. Dan LaChance, has spoken of. There are numerous violations, actual violations in law that we did not get to present to the court due to technicalities. The invocation of technicalities to prevent the actual hearing of broken laws going into this election, disenfranchising nearly 11,000 registered voters who never received their mail-in ballots, who never received any notification, who never received a pamphlet to outline where to vote, when to vote, and how to remedy the fact that they need to have their ballots, how to remedy that when they don't have it. It is a low turnout election that disenfranchise many Cochise residents. For all of these reasons, and we can go into greater details, and Dan LaChance has spoken of further investigations, we implore you as our elected officials duly authorized to conduct this election, to authorize it, to review it, and to approve of it, that you take the time to look at all of the violations that it has incurred since November of last year to date. And these are substantial violations that need to be addressed that caused this election to be illegal. And we petition you as our elected officials to carefully look at the facts, look at the violations in law, and not certify this election. We have petitioned you prior to this on other election integrity matters. These also have not been addressed at all. And to rush to do this election and to conform it to bad decisions, unlawful decisions by Lisa Mera, to cover that up is not something that we expect. And it is something that we expect our election officials to correct so that we have a good election, a fair election, and something that we can all believe in. To have nearly 11,000 registered voters disenfranchised, and then to have an additional 400 to 500 voters, as noted by Recorder Stevens, that mailed in their ballots.
That's all the time you have.
Thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you. Yvonne Mayer.
I am Yvonne Mayer from Hereford. Thank you for this opportunity to address you today. There are many questions to be answered about our recent voting exercise. I want to talk about voter verification. How is it done? Is there one accepted, reliable way to verify signatures? How was it done in this election? Were all the votes subject to verification? I don't think so. And my question to you is, how can an election be certified if the signatures were not verified? Thank you.
One is George Pergastis.
Thank you. My name is George Pergastis, and I have lived in the county for 41 years. I am here to ask Ms. Judd and Mr. Crosby to vote no and not accept the jail tax canvass. My reason is that the mail-in election format is just too vulnerable to fraudulent actions by evildoers. Ms. Judd and Mr. Crosby, I know what I am asking of you. It is difficult for you to swim upstream against a huge certification current. But I want to help you do just that by asking you some straightforward questions. If you eventually certify this election, how do you know that an unopened ballot returned by the post office did not belong to a voter who recently moved but wants to vote? How do you know that the addressed voter was the one who marked the yes or no box? How do you know that the voter, while voting, was not improperly influenced? How do you know that the voter's response was not illegally changed before it was mailed back? How do you know that a voter prepared his or her ballot but forgot to mail it back? How do you know that additional illegal votes were not included in the set of votes returned? And finally, how do you know the requested amount of the jail tax is reasonable? We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars here. You must know that we can get a proper jail tax and begin a new jail system with an in-person November election. This new election will make these questions and other procedural issues go away. You soon will have a new election director, and you have had an experienced election certified recorder to help you make this November election a success. Ms. Judd and Mr. Crosby, have courage, stand up, and do the right thing. Vote no today. Thank you.
Next speaker is Johnny Lee Wilson, Sr. Okay, so he's not here. The next one is Henry Conroy.
Good afternoon. My name is Henry Conroy. I'm from Sierra Vista, and thank you for this opportunity. I think the basics is that this election really was illegally constituted and should never have been conducted in the first place, according to the ARS 16558-.01. Part of the problem I have with it is that we had an unelected group of people that proposed this jail grouping, and that was then taken and turned into a proposed voting process. I, as a citizen, was never notified that we were going to have this and that it was going to be a mail-in ballot only. I understand from what I've gathered in terms of my research that you did not approve that in the first place, that you approved it after the fact and after it had been announced to the community. I find that wrong in the very basis of it. I think also, as mentioned earlier, there's 11,000 voters that were disenfranchised. We also impeded the voters' ability to submit theirs by the fact that you closed most of the ballot areas, dropped it from 5 down to 3. The county also failed to establish any kind of chain of custody with the ballots that were submitted. And as mentioned earlier, there's no way to verify those signatures are valid. So I would appeal to the entire board that you do not vote for this, that you vote no. And let's do it the right way. Let's do it the way the people want to have it done. We want to have the right to be able to vote on a ballot in person. I really dislike the mail-in ballots for the very reason that we've all talked about and that you all have said before. There's not a way of certifying those in any way, shape, or form, or knowing who mailed them, when they were mailed, or who signed them. So that's the basics. I think also there's some other things the county has violated, the ARS 7.1 and 7.11 as well, in terms of the tabulating of this process of going beyond 1 day for the election. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Nancy Olmstead is next.
My name is Nancy Olmstead, and I live in Whetstone, and I thank you for this opportunity. There are many issues about this election. However, I want to express my disappointment, my rage about the mandated mail election. In review, November 15th, Resolution 2229 was passed. In December, the county published the notices including mail election. On January 24th, the board discussed amending the resolution to add mail. Referring to the video on YouTube at 53:36, Supervisor Conroy asked, "I don't see the need." To be clarified, looking at the resolution, it didn't have mail election. Mr. K, sorry. The last day it would have happened was November 15th. That day, the board decided. Supervisor Judd asked to review the November 15 minutes or delay the vote. Crosby, I don't remember the discussion. English, you didn't know there was going to be a ballot election? A mail election? Crosby, no, not until today. Judd, who made that decision? Mr. K, the decision has to be made today, suggesting to postpone the decision until after lunch. Judd, if it was not written, we did not vote on it. Are we going to have an all-mail ballot or not? Maybe the board just didn't make that decision, but someone did. So the item was tabled until after lunch. Coming back, Judd discussed her chat afterwards. When it was reconvened, Judd discussed her chat with Mr. Stevens, but did not revisit the November 15 minutes. Crosby said he had reviewed the minutes, finding no discussion about mail. The vote was taken at 2:22:10, 2 yes, 1 no. In summary, on January 24th, 2 out of the 3 supervisors did not know this was going to be a mail election. If they didn't know, how would we have known? And when did we have our public forum opportunity as required by law? Ms. Judd, I am sorry that you were treated with such disrespect during the 24th meeting. It was unkind and unmerited. You were bullied. However, it's clear that there was an agenda to coerce you to vote for an election process which instinctively you questioned. You were manipulated to vote for something you did not in your heart agree. This is your opportunity to fix an egregious error. Do the right thing today. Vote no. Vote to redo this election. Do it right under your guidance. Thank you.
Randall Limbaugh.
Good afternoon, Randall Limbach, Sierra Vista. I would also ask the board, please vote no on certifying these election results. The election was not conducted per ARS 16-558. Nearly 11,000 voters did not receive a ballot, therefore disenfranchising those voters. 17 vote centers were closed, disenfranchising voters. 2 of 5 ballot drop-off locations were closed on election day, disenfranchising voters. No chain of custody. There was no identification, verification of voters, of ballots. And ultimately, we failed to follow the requirements mandated by election equipment and software to certify the election. Thank you.
Stephen McNeely.
Steve McNeely, Tombstone, Arizona. I oppose this election as well. As the previous speaker said, it's not a fair election, and I just detest early mail-in ballots. I'm 78 years old. I've voted over 50 years, and I've never voted an early ballot or a mail-in ballot. We know from experience in the last few elections, it's nothing but a license to steal. And why are we doing it? Why are we spending extra money to do a mail-in ballot when we could have added it to our regular election? And besides that, we probably need a jail. I won't deny that. But look at your budget. It's over $250 million. And we're taking in a lot of new sales tax we never took before. I run Outlaw Zipline at Tombstone. I was retired 9 years. I moved to Cochise County, spent a bunch of money to move a zipline to help our community. And now our taxes are over 10% with the county, state, and city tax. I've got people walking away because they can't take a ride with their kids because they can't afford the tax. So we're being taxed to death. And this was not vetted. I didn't even know about, we were going to be voting on it until it was out. And something this important, you know, and as a county board, you should have known that this jail needed improvement years ago. Set up a fund to do it. Don't wait until the 11th hour and then tell us we got to start peeling out some more money we don't have. And the economy today, the way it is with the Biden economy, is terrible. Not a good time to be raising taxes. And let's go to the state. They got a budget. They got a surplus. Go to the feds. They're causing our problem. I've talked to Sheriff Daniels. Over half the people in the jail are illegals, and we're going to have a lot more of them if we left this border wide open like we are. You know, our police department in Tombstone is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. We've got high-speed chases going through town 100 miles an hour because we have no border. So, you know, we got a lot of issues. We don't need to tax people to death. So vote no, please.
Dixie McNeely.
Dixie McNeely from Tombstone, Arizona. And I also agree with everything that's been said here. I'm not in favor of this election at all. I do not like mail-in ballots. And this jail, which probably is needed, did not deteriorate overnight. I think that the board of directors should have known about this and probably put it in the budget years and years ago. Why right now? And I do not like the sales tax. I have to now charge people over 10% sales tax. And they're balking already at 9.6. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to us. So I know I just looked at the budget and there's like 27 million in new spending from last year to this year. So I'm sure that if you looked at the money that this county is spending, they could find ways to cut and then afford a new jail.
Kara Harris is next.
Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Kara Harris. I live in Whetstone, Arizona, and I'm kind of confused. I'm not the smartest cookie in the box here, but as I remember, and I was at the board meetings, we were informed that there had been an ad taken out in the paper before any of you voted on whether this election was going to go off. To me, now, not being an attorney or anybody brilliant, that to me violated all of our rights. How can you certify election that was started illegally when Sheriff Daniels and Mr. Karwachka put an ad in the paper? I was here. I heard you all vote in retrospect after this election was put out in the newspaper. Now, I could be wrong, but I thought that's what happened. And I am not against Sheriff Daniels getting a new jail, but Mr. Conroy actually had an excellent idea that would more than have paid for it without not only crippling us as taxpayers, but destroying small businesses. Do you know what's going to happen with Sun & Spokes? A lot of people are going to go up to Tucson to buy their bikes because now we've put Mark in a position to where he's going to have to, just like this lady just said, increase the sales tax. Who's going to want to buy a car from Mr. Lawley when they're going to pay more in Cochise County? But the point here is not that. The point is this was done illegally, and I suggest you all look at the legalities. Thank you very much.
Hey, you, Aldrich. Okay. All right. Well, he signed in opposed. Okay. Barbara, are you just not speaking either? Okay. Opposed. Randall Limbaugh. I already read your name. So you signed in twice, which is really awesome. Good job. Stephen McNeely. Same thing. I have some duplicates here. Sorry about that. And Dixie. Now I'm starting to see you here. Okay. All right. We had 3 others that signed in, not asking to speak, and are opposed. And that is the end of our public session, unless there's anyone else anyone knows of. Nope. Okay. Thank you. So we do have a motion. I have a few comments. Before we start, I knew about this jail district being a need, and we talked about different ways to pay for it. I remember it could have been the first week that I was a supervisor. So that was a few years ago, 7-ish. And all of the elected officials were together in the room. And we recognized that this was imminent. 7 years ago, it was imminent. We have tried many times. It hasn't necessarily been brought for a vote, but we've developed and worked together as elected officials, as people in the county, and we knew that one day we'd have to make a decision. So we finally did come to the idea that we needed to have the public involved in that decision, and we did select members from the communities to sit together. Maybe that was not the right thing to do, but those meetings were publicized, and I believe it was the right thing to do to call the public in. They sat together. They were in public meetings. Those meetings are available online if any of you listen to them. They had all kinds of perspectives in those meetings. They also had input from the sheriff's department and from corrections. We needed to have something to start with. And I feel like having David Stevens over this election was, for me, that was kind of, that secured me. That made me feel good about it. We got him in there. He knows what he's doing. In a minute, after everybody comments, I have some questions for David possibly to clear up some of the issues now that maybe I didn't have, but now I kind of do. I have some questions for him. But I would like to call on my colleagues to add anything they would like to.
Will we have time for discussion after Mr. Stevens' presentation and prior to the vote?
Yes.
I'll postpone until that time.
Should have had him do his presentation first. Is that what his name was on there for? Well, okay, maybe he'll answer all of my questions. Do you have anything to say now before David? Okay, so Mr. Stevens, you're online. It is your turn to please speak to us.
All righty. Good afternoon. The jailhouse, the Cochise County Jail District election was executed. All eligible voters received a ballot. There were 76,219 active registered voters. Statute dictates that only active voters get mail-in ballots on an all-mail special district. Logic and accuracy test performed on April 12th, 2023 at 2 p.m. Representatives for both political parties, along with 3 election staffs, were present. Notice was published in the Bisbee Observer, 3/30/23, posted on the county website, and posted at the Board of Supervisors Bulletin Board. 2 different sets of test decks were utilized and test was accurate. Post logic and accuracy test performed on May 24th. Results were the same as the pre-election LNA testing, passed successfully. The results were released at 8 p.m. on election night and posted on the website. The one posting occurred that night. An additional posting occurred on Wednesday, May 17th, which added 2,051 ballots. The election was closed out on May 19th, which was Friday at 5 p.m., where we added an additional 15 cured signatures were accepted and tabulated in the existing results. And a final posting occurred shortly after 5 p.m. Overall, there were 34 signatures cured, ballots tabulated. 3 ballot replacement centers were established, one in Wilcox, Sierra Vista, and the recorder's office. It was open on election day from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. 544 ballots were dropped off and 35 replacement ballots were issued. A staff member along with local poll workers were utilized at Wilcox and Sierra Vista sites. 2 couriers were on site at 7 p.m. to pick up all the ballots and election material, bringing back the election department. They arrived between 7:45 and 9:15. And after taking inventory of the material and securing them in the warehouse, election staff left the facilities at 9:45. Drop boxes were utilized during the entire early voting period. They were located in Sierra Vista, Douglas, Wilcox, Benson, and Bisbee. The boxes were removed at 5 p.m. on May 15th, and 2,620 ballots were collected overall out of the drop boxes. Overall voter participation for the election was 32.84%, roughly 1/3, with a total of 76,219 ballots mailed and 25,048 returned, accepted by the recorder and tabulated by elections. 16 ballots were undervotes, which means they didn't vote on either yes or no. 21 ballots were rejected due to no signature at all. And 420 ballots were rejected and not counted due to the ballots being received in the mail after the election. 3,215 undeliverable ballots were sent back to us and they were not accepted or counted. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions, Ms. Judd?
I have them. So there was a question brought up, and I've seen it personally, but how are signatures verified?
Well, As the ballot comes in, we have them in our hand. There's a barcode on the address that brings up that voter's record and their most current signature. If that one isn't matched significantly enough to the signature on the envelope, we go back into the record and check all the signatures they have. Some people have 2 or 3, some may have 10. Depends on just how often they move, update the record, or send us the signature in that we've requested. Once those signatures meet satisfactory selection, they're put into a batch and sent out to elections. Now, if they're rejected by the initial staff person, it goes to the chief deputy. If she rejects it, it comes to me. Every rejected ballot is rejected by me. So it goes through 3 people before it's completely rejected. If anybody, and I heard that comment come up, when I get back, if you want to come in and I can demonstrate to you exactly how we do this process, just make an appointment to come on in and we'll show you how it's done.
It's on a computer and a screen. There's a screen that reads the signature and then it shows up, right? You don't have to look it up in a book or anything.
No, it's the voter registration system called AVID. All of their signatures are in there. And we have the wet signature, is what we call it, when they sign the envelope, in our hand. And we're able to hold it right up to the screen and take a look. Some of them go very quickly. Some of them are obviously not correct at all, and they're rejected out of hand.
Okay, thank you. And then I need you to describe inactive voters, because I was presented with the definition of that, and it made more sense to me. We're hearing that some people were disenfranchised because they were inactive, but there's actually statutes, I understand. So if you could describe an inactive voter for me.
Yeah, it goes back to the NAVRA process, or the Motor Voter Bill from 1993. States on how you remove people from the voter rolls. That has to do with undeliverable first-class mail coming back to our office. We're required to send a second letter requesting that they update their registration. If that does not come back within 35 days or hit the inactive status, they stay there for 4 federal elections. Primary, general. At any time, they can make their record active. If in that 4-cycle period they show up to vote on site, once they vote, they're flipped to active, and the inactive is gone.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. All right. So what percentage of voter turnout just off your head, do we usually get in elections? Because I remember it being about 1/3 of a turnout, even at the polling locations.
Well, the most recent election in May was last year, and it was the runoff for the mayor election in Douglas, and that had a 12% turnout. And that was a runoff election. They had an election in March for the mayor and some city council members. That was about a 15% turnout. Nobody for mayor got the 50 plus 1, so they do a runoff in May, and that was a 12% turnout for that election.
Wow. So I think I just recall in our federal elections, it's so weird because I don't have anyone to look at. In our federal elections, there is just kind of about 30%. We would consider that a really good turnout. That's what I remember in the last few years, last few elections, overall from our registered voters. So participation.
Typically for May it was a good turnout. For August or November it wouldn't be. But that depends on the year. This is an off year. It's an odd number year. If it happened in 24 next May, it probably would have been higher maybe. It's really hard to say. It does involve a tax question, which motivates more people to vote. And again, this is my opinion. It's not anything in stone, but I think a third turnout is for a May election is probably okay, but it is low for the entire county because we do have 76,000 active voters.
Okay, thank you for straightening me out on that. And then I heard it mentioned public forums, opportunities for public forums, but that may be maybe a question for staff, for whoever it was that put the public notice out. And you mentioned that, Mr. Stevens, when we put public notice out, but that was for the logic and accuracy test. So I do believe we do public notice in the places he mentioned, the Bisbee Examiner and the website. So we did public notice. So can I ask staff for support?
Mr. Stevens would know. He did the publications.
Oh, okay. So you publicized about this election, the publications about this election period, overall. Can you kind of talk to me about those dates and when you did it, where you did it? Not just logic and accuracy, but the actual election itself.
Yeah, as I took on the role as the interim election director, part of this had already been started. So the biggest part I had was the publicity pamphlet. One other question came up about that also from the panel coming up, that statute requires only one pamphlet to be mailed to any house with a registered voter. So it was north of 46,000. So if you have 3 registered voters in a house, you're only going to get one pamphlet. And that's the way statute holds it. I don't have, off the top of my head, I don't have when the postings were. I can get those to you. I honestly, I just don't recall. Some of those I thought were done before I took over this job. I know that we did once we started early ballots, which was April 1st, there was posting, at least on the website, when ballots went out, which was roughly 29 days before, which is the 19th of April. There should have been a posting going out, and the pamphlets were received the day before, 2 days before the ballots were received. So the goal was to get those as close as possible.
So that statutorily is what you're required to do.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, they're okay.
And we did have many public forums around the county, so I do remember that. But I think the question is, when was it in the newspaper originally? Who would have seen it? Now, I don't read the newspaper, so I wouldn't have seen it. But when was it originally in the newspaper?
Which part are you talking about?
The notice of election, the initial notice of election. So we did put that in the paper, right? And everyone would have had a chance to see that.
Can I have one second?
Okay. And I try to read the paper. I hate to say that.
So it was published. I don't have the exact dates of when it was published. It was put on our website as well.
Okay. So you see there's a hand raised in the audience. I don't think that I can take a question. I tried to get all the questions you can. I hope that in our discussion further, we get your answer. Okay. I apologize. So, all right. There were other issues too. Those are just the things that stood out to me that I was like, I need to ask Mr. Stevens and kind of verify what I had heard. And obviously with one I was wrong, the turnout for voter turnout. Okay. So thank you, Recorder Stevens. Do we know that they really public meeting laws and our, you could ask Mr. Stevens questions? I don't think so. I think it's the same exact as if you were asking us. We can ask Mr. Stevens questions, so let the board ask some questions that I may have missed. I am ready. Are you ready to ask a question or two?
I don't have any questions
You
for
just have
Mr.
to-
Stevens. I did read the entire package that he sent, and it is very interesting, and we'll go through it, try to figure it all out at some point.
Okay. All right. Should we be doing that as while we discuss this item? Do you have any discussion on that package?
I have comments prior to the vote. Are we ready to vote?
I don't know. Are we ready to vote? Would you like to say anything?
It's a little confusing to me, the things that people bring up at this point in time. And the fact that they almost revere Mr. Stevens, but most of the things that you bring up, whether or not he was the election director or interim, those were in his wheelhouse to begin with as the recorder. You know, the verification of the signatures, those kinds of things. So I felt comfortable all along that we were following the process that was outlined by statute, that the county attorney and that High Ground was, even though it was from the board, many times we don't have the expertise to know all the details of how a process goes. So there was a company that was hired to sort of lead us through this process. And of course, we had the county attorney making sure that we were following all the laws. So I have not felt that there was any problem that we have encountered. It bothers me to hear the public, and it's happened more than once, by this same group of people that keep saying that there were 11,000 people that were disenfranchised, and without saying who they were or why, or you know, but it gets picked up and it makes people go, well, who were they? I mean, why weren't they? You know, and so I sort of resent those kinds of things happening because, as Mr. Stevens said, it was sent out to all the people who are registered voters.
That's incorrect. Not inactive.
Yeah, who were active registered voters, but that's okay. So I have just kind of a closing comment before we vote. Do you want me to call for the vote? You're going to discuss it at that point?
Whatever you want. We're ready to vote after your closing comment, and it's my time for my closing comment. Then this is my closing comment.
It's your time.
Okay, good deal. I'm very proud and grateful to my colleagues that in March of 2021, I was able to pass a resolution declaring Cochise County to be a constitutional county. And as accurately noted by Ms. Olmstead, on January 24th this year, I voted no on the issue of amending the November 15th, 2022 resolution 22-29 to approve this jail tax election to be an all mail-in ballot election. That was because it had already been published in the paper before approval of the Board of Supervisors. Therefore, adoption of that process violated the due process laid out for the matter. And although there may be bureaucrats or attorneys that may provide some level of plausible deniability or even legality, I don't find that to be so. Quoting from the Fifth Amendment, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And in the 14th Amendment, repeated, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And I believe the process approved by the board January 24th violated due process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Whenever, this item came up initially, I had some hesitation. There is, there's a line whether we are conducting business in our families, conducting business at the county, conducting business in our own business. We do have to make some choices that are hard or give us some sort of a satisfaction in our heart and in our gut. I am a constitutional person. I'm not a person who's going to break with what is right, what is legal. And that's why I've turned many times to our legislators, and I don't see them, I know all of you have approached the legislators. I don't see them supporting us here as far as don't make another move. I mean, we did receive a letter recently from Sonny Borelli, which is fine, but up until this point, they haven't said don't make another move. And I don't see a group of people going to the legislature saying Cochise County can or can't do this anymore. we don't make those decisions ultimately. And I think personally, I've encouraged people to go to the legislature. The election, as far as I was concerned, being under Mr. Stevens in every way was conducted as good as it could be. And there were, a lot of people chose to use the drop boxes, but we knew it would be close all along. It was close. I can't imagine someone signing no when they really meant yes, or signing yes on a ballot when they really meant no. And I know that Recorder Stevens would have noticed if there was something unusual. And even this giant stack of papers that we've been given here that we haven't had a chance really to look at every single page. I didn't receive this online, by the way. I only received one page online. I didn't receive the whole page. So anyway, you may leave. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate that you're here. I appreciate that you spoke. And we are working as hard as we can to do what's right. Mr. Stevens is as well. This was a timely matter, but also we've been working on it for 7 years, at least that I know of. We don't have another way to get the money. We tried. We had a consultant come and talk to us about it. And there may have been another way, but this was the least harmful as far as people who don't like taxes and the most beneficial. And I don't see any reason to belabor it. I see a lot of reason to move forward and correct things still. At this point, this is the end. And we need this. We needed the jail. I am proud to serve on a jail district. We already serve on other special districts in the county, library, light districts. We're ready to do this, and we will do it right, and there will be lots of public interaction. There will be. And I need those 3 people to nod their head. There'll be lots of public interaction. Anyway, thank you. I just want to, if everyone's finished, I'm finished. And I want to call for the vote. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Nay.
And the chair votes aye, and the motion carries. Okay. I have to end the meeting. Our next meeting, I have been making notes all over all kinds of papers here. The next meeting is Tuesday, May 30th at 11 a.m. in the Board of Supervisors Executive Conference Room for a special executive session regarding CV 2023-1630. The meeting is adjourned.